And also developing tonight, moments ago, a response now from the government and the top IRS lawyers to demands that it preserve the data from the woman at the heart of the scandal to target conservative groups. As of right now, it appears that the government is refusing to budge on the issue of investigating these hard drives and where that information ultimately went, or even allow an independent examinationer to come in and look at Lois Lerner's computer system, try to figure out what they can get out of there. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel reports tonight from Washington. Hi, Mike.
Well, Martha, good evening. There will be significant pressure on the IRS this week, both on Capitol Hill and in the federal courts, as leaders and groups seek answers. Late today, I spoke to a member of Congress who suggested upcoming hearings should feature IRS and Justice Department officials answering questions side by side.
The biggest part of this is what involvement did the Department of Justice have as well. You know, you've got the IRS, you've got interactions back and forth with the Department of Justice. And so having both of them together would be a real critical thing, so one can not say, well, we didn't know.
Fox News has learned IRS Commissioner John Koskinen will return to Capitol Hill Wednesday after a couple of bruising hearings. Some House lawmakers have picked apart Koskinen's testimony, and sources say the commissioner wants to clear up any discrepancies. For example, Koskinen testified that former official Lois Lerner printed out a lot of her emails, but her attorney says that wasn't the case. Of course, Lerner isn't talking, refusing to answer lawmakers' questions, and the agency is blaming a hard drive crash for wiping out 2+ years of her external emails. Then conservative group True the Vote will be in U.S. District Court in Washington on Friday. The organization clearly isn't buying the IRS crashed hard drive excuse and wants to have a forensic expert determine how those emails were lost and if any of that missing information can be recovered. True the Vote sued the tax collection agency last year over the targeting of conservative groups, including itself. Officials say the IRS has been asked to put its own internal review on hold while the Treasury Inspector General investigates the missing emails. Congress continues demanding answers, and some groups harassed by the IRS are applying their own pressure through the federal courts. Martha?
Indeed they are. Mike, thank you very much. So now that the government has responded to these groups that are seeking some kind of justification in all this in the courts, the ball is now in the judge's court. Could and should the judge order the IRS to hand this information over or to let some computer experts in there to see if they can get their hands on it? Judge Andrew Napolitano is a Fox News senior judicial analyst, and he joins me now. Judge, welcome. Good evening to you.
Good to be with you, Martha.
So we just heard a little while ago from Cleta Mitchell, who's the attorney for True the Vote, and they had asked the IRS, you know, let's bring in some outside investigators to look through your hard drives and figure out what's in there. And they basically came back with a resounding, look, there's nothing here. There's no evidence. There's nothing to dig into, and basically back off.
Well, you know, the IRS lawyers are really making an argument that's basically sophistry. It's just a circular argument. And they're basically saying that because these things don't exist, there is no evidence for us to give you. And because the crash of Mrs. Lerner's hard drive happened before you sued us, there is nothing in that crash that could conceivably affect this lawsuit. You know what? They're saying it to the wrong judge, and they're saying it in the wrong forum.
Why?
Well, this judge, Reggie Walton, is a very, very strong-willed guy who's nobody's pushover. He's certainly not the government's pushover. If he suspects that a litigant before him is playing fast and loose with the rules in order to prevent their adversary from seeing what they have a right to see, he's going to come down on them very hard. You know, it's really the beauty of our system. The IRS has stonewalled the Congress to the frustration of 2/3 of the nation. The Congress can't get to first base on this. But here you have a private litigant, True the Vote, and they have the IRS, the great grand inquisitor IRS, with their back to the wall. And they are within inches of getting what the Congress can't get, which is an outside independent investigation of Mrs. Lerner's hard drive.
Yeah, you're so right. And when you think about the fact that Lois Lerner said, look, I called the IT department. I really wanted to find out if I could get back the information that was lost there. Well, if she really wanted to get back that information, why wouldn't they welcome an outside investigator to say, you know what, come on in, get a look in the hard drive, because there's nothing there. She told us in front of Congress, there's nothing there. I did nothing wrong. They are stonewalling to the point where, you know, as you say, this had to be pushed into the court system to get anywhere, and finally maybe True the Vote's going to get some kind of answers here.
I have a feeling, look, I can't predict what he's going to do. I'm certainly not going to suggest what I think he should do. He's a terrific and superb federal judge who calls things as he sees them. But I have a feeling that some light is going to come out of this. If he's going to demand, he's going to insist that the IRS do something, which the Congress is powerless to do. And I'm not blaming the Congress. They just don't have, they don't have the tools
not to do as well, correct?
Correct.
If they destroyed this evidence, that's one thing.
Well,
if they didn't save the evidence, they're guilty of breaking the law, correct?
Correct. But for them to say there can be no evidence in this case because the hard drive crashed before the case started is not an argument that will resonate well with this judge. For them to say, we won't help you find what was on there because we don't even want an outside person to look at this hard drive, just belies common sense. Look, 16-year-olds that know more about computers than you and I do, certainly more than I do not believe Mrs. Lerner's excuses and the excuses of the IRS.
If there's nothing to hide, I say again, if there's nothing to hide, open the doors. Say, come on in. We have no problem with you looking at everything that is in here. John Koskinen, this poor guy, sat before Congress and said, oh, we're going to produce all the emails for you. I'm going to be back here and we're going to produce them. Now he's forced into a situation of saying, oh, actually, she never did print them out. Somebody told me she printed them out, but apparently she didn't. Well,
now he's getting very, very close to misleading Congress. Remember, there's two potential crimes here. One is an outright lie under oath, and one is sort of a below-the-radar screen lie where you say things to mislead. That's what Roger Clemens was tried for. Ironically, before Judge Reggie Walton, who threw the case out because he was so upset with the government's shenanigans, and then eventually Clemens was retried and found not guilty. But the IRS is in a position they don't want to be in right now before this judge. Fireworks on Friday.
A lot of people think checks and balances has failed true the vote so far, but now they've found one more check and balance out in the court system.
There's that other branch of the government.
Exactly, and we'll see if they get anywhere with it. Judge, thank you very much.
You're welcome.